Please welcome the unstoppable Chief Executive Officer of O&ESummit2022, Aaron Uritis.
Welcome back. We have an incredible plenary today. I started my social and political advocacy over 20 years ago. And if I can boil down the essence of what it takes to make real, lasting change, sorry, hang on. Apologies, hang on. It's not that. It's not that.
Sounds like you're okay.
There's no notes.
Oh, got it. Her notes went away.
Hang on one second. You all just start eating. Talk about your night last night. Yes. It's actually good because some people are still streaming in, right? We don't have the notes. You like my boots? Should I do a little fashion walk? Thank you for your patience. If I can boil down the essence of what it takes to make real, lasting change, it takes all of us. It takes our frontline, direct service colleagues who are treating COVID and monkeypox. It takes our brilliant legal and political minds to navigate the halls of Congress and state houses. And it takes collaboration and co-leadership to move anything forward. When I joined O&ESummit2022, I met with my peers in the movement, and we drew up these points of collaboration and complementarity in the work. Because in the rushing waters we've faced, of hundreds of anti-LGBTQ bills introduced every year, state to state, to ugly dips in our elected officials' rhetoric about us, and Supreme Court cases that have literal life and death consequences. We cannot afford to work in silos. Our collective mission is too urgent. We will realize the dream of full inclusion and equality as long as we work together, as a movement and with the business community. To the casual observer, it may seem like this is a recent trend of businesses stepping up. We had a friendly White House during the Obama years. LGBTQ people seem to be everywhere. Acceptance is on the rise, and now Gen Z is pushing for change. A whole host, yes. A whole host of factors have come together to create an easier climate for businesses to rally by our side in the last few years. But the truth is much more complex, and it goes back decades. What the LGBTQ movement has built in partnership with the business community amounts to a historic shift in the possibilities of civil and social rights movements here in the US and around the world. The blueprint for change that originated here is seen in the Chilean and Japanese efforts for marriage that have brought in historic business support. In India, where equal protections are advanced by the business community, and in so many countries in between. It has taken perseverance and innovation to build this partnership and framework for legal and social change. 3 leaders that have been together in victories and innovative strategies, who collectively have over 60 years of LGBTQ advocacy, are here today to tell us about this view behind the curtains of when history was made. Nadine Smith, the longtime executive director of Equality Florida, who was recently recognized as among the 100 most influential people of 2022 by Time magazine, oversees the, yes. Nadine oversees the state's largest organization dedicated to ending discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. An award-winning journalist turned organizer, Nadine has spent decades in the movement and co-chaired the 1993 March on Washington. Sarah Warbelow, the legal director for the Human Rights Campaign, who leads HRC's team of lawyers and fellows focused on federal, state, and municipal policy, domestic and international impact litigation, and amicus curiae advocacy. She was also the lead author of the Equality Act and is frequently called on as an expert in both the media as well as for congressional testimony. And Dina Fidas, Managing Director and Chief Program and Partnerships Officer of O&ESummit2022, is a globally recognized expert on LGBTQ+ inclusion. She was at the Human Rights Campaign for 12 years, where she oversaw the Corporate Equality Index and launched corporate inclusion programs around the world. Dina was behind some of the movement's largest corporate public policy mobilization efforts, including turning the tide for corporate America's support for marriage equality and the Equality Act. At O&ESummit2022, she has been my right hand and led the organization's growth to a place where we could have never imagined years ago. She's guided the rollout of our new partnership model, launched our advisory services, and oversees learning, development, and our global impact programs. I know she's worked with so many of you for years, and you have seen her impact. I am so incredibly proud, and please help me welcome Dina, Nadine, and Sarah.
Thank you, Erin and Sarah and Dina. It's always a pleasure to be together. There she is, Anita Bryant. 40 years ago, Florida became ground zero in the very public battle for equality. Anita Bryant, an orange juice spokesmodel, made a name for herself opposing gay rights through her Save Our Children campaign. She started in Florida, but she didn't stop there. Her anti-LGBTQ crusade spread nationwide, and in its wake, bans on marriage equality, on adoption, and our basic rights were stripped away. Back then, we took to the courts and the streets to push back against the legal harm and her dangerous rhetoric. We called on our community and our allies to come out where they were, in their communities, in their families, and in their workplaces. We are a movement that creatively and proudly finds tools of resistance. What we are going to talk about is the history-changing strategy of transforming the business community into one of the most influential levers for change.
Thank you, Nadine. I want to pick up the baton in the early 2000s, when after 2 decades of our community's headlines being so grim, AIDS, public policy being leveraged against us, we had a huge breakthrough. In 2003, finally, the United States Supreme Court struck down our criminalization statutes, and LGBTQ people were no longer at risk of arrest or prosecution for having intimate relationships.
And with that, a path was cleared through which businesses more confidently stepped up and implemented LGBTQ+ inclusive policies and benefits, the building blocks of workplace equality. It's worth noting, though, that O&ESummit2022, the HRC's Corporate Equality Index, NGLCC, Equality Florida, all of us started in the years before the Lawrence decision. In those critical years, an early cohort of companies like P&G, American Airlines, JP Morgan, and Apple demonstrated that not only could businesses advance equity and inclusion ahead of judges and lawmakers, they were showing they should. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's smart business. With that, our movement created an historic new framework that had never been done before, the business case for LGBTQ+ inclusion. It built on the civil rights and the moral case, but it was much more effective across workplaces in the US. We were then free of the whims of politicians and ready to make change on a scale previously unimaginable.
Partner benefits and LGBTQ non-discrimination became the norm across the Fortune 500 in that decade. The business community was leaning into inclusion in key ways, so much so that the unequal patchwork of laws impacting their employees and their customers from one city to the next became more and more untenable.
Now, the very first two business coalitions, federal business coalitions, were for partner benefits, tax equity, and federal employment protections. I know, partner benefits, tax equity. It's not exactly a snazzy slogan on a protest sign, but what it spoke to was, for those of us that could actually get partner benefits, we faced a penalty because our marriages weren't recognized. And so not only was there a tax on being in a same-sex relationship in America that we in the community felt, but the impact extended far beyond the individual level. Companies' bottom lines were directly affected by this inequality. And with that less than snazzy slogan, the drumbeat for businesses for marriage began in earnest.
That's right, Dina. From 2008 until 2015, we found ourselves playing offense and defense at the same time. After the devastating Prop 8 loss, we had to regroup. With the New York marriage fight, we got companies to step up in a new way en masse, and we won. Businesses were part of that victory lap. We fought for marriage equality against marriage equality bans in over 24 states. In 2013, Edie Windsor's case struck down a key provision of the Defense of Marriage Act that denied legally married same-sex couples access to federal benefits. But after that victory, we still needed to secure marriage state by state. In parallel, we were building support for litigation efforts across the country to get marriage through the circuit courts and all the way to the Supreme Court. Two pivotal things happened: getting businesses to weigh in on any state legislative matter that was not strictly taxes had not been done before. And we organized the first business amicus brief connected to marriage equality through the circuit courts. And as so many of us remember on that emotional day, Jim Obergefell emerged triumphant on the steps of the Supreme Court just 2.5 years later in June of 2015. Dina, you and I were together along with so many of our friends and colleagues.
Yes, I still get goosebumps thinking about that day. I also want to remind us of the nature of these cases, Edie Windsor's and Jim Obergefell's. Both were triumphs forged in tragedy. You'd be forgiven if you thought that Jim emerged from the Supreme Court to the loving embrace of his husband. Jim's fight to the court did not allow him to marry his husband. Jim was already married to his husband, John, in the state of Maryland. But when John died of ALS, their home state of Ohio would not list Jim as his spouse on the death certificate. Those were the stakes. That is the level of indignity that we had to fight, simply listing a deceased spouse on a death certificate. What Jim Obergefell lost in death, he gave to all of us to have fuller, more equal lives. So I urge us all to never forget how little our community has been able to take for granted. And if you want a snapshot of the role of the business community in marriage equality, in 2008, just a handful of businesses publicly supported marriage. But we built support one fight at a time, so that when Jim Obergefell entered the court, he had the might of nearly 400 major businesses, including so many in this room, signed on to a friend of the court brief affirming their support for marriage equality.
And while we were rallying at the court and celebrating, we also braced for the backlash from our opponents. And it arrived with an avalanche of anti-LGBTQ bills at a scale we'd never seen before.
Yes, that year we saw over 120 bills introduced. They were RFRAs, religious refusal bills. And we're not talking about infringing upon anyone's practice of religion or free speech. We're talking about laws that open the door to discrimination in the public sphere, from your waiter at a restaurant to the county clerk. We have a gaping hole with respect to public accommodation protections. Because we lack these at the federal level, that invites states to push through bills like North Carolina's HB2 and other anti-transgender so-called bathroom bills.
We also saw anti-LGBTQ state lawmakers push back on progress by stripping cities of their ability to pass their own non-discrimination protections, as well as launching a whole new line of attacks on our families in the form of adoption bans. Between 2015 and today, over 1,800 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced across the state. In Florida, anti-LGBTQ politicians are once again using the same Anita Bryant attacks on our community, particularly aimed at students and families, as their political calling card to rile up their extremist base in service of their political ambitions for higher office.
So in real time, we found ourselves under attack with unprecedented force. We had a committed business community, but one that was not used to being on the defensive alongside us. They did not have national infrastructures of advocates in state houses that were fluent in LGBTQ issues. And they were just as dizzied by the array of attacks as we in the community were. While we were not fully prepared for the levels of animosity aimed at us state to state, the community had been hard at work in the months leading up to the Obergefell decision to get us much closer to realizing the dream of full federal protections. Sarah, you were one of the lead authors of the bill. And before I turn back to you, can we all take a moment to recognize this heroism of constructing a once-in-a-generation piece of legislation for all of our civil rights?
Thank you, Dina. When we say full civil rights protections, we mean employment, credit, education, public accommodations, jury service, and housing. It's what I like to call cradle-to-grave protections. And Dina, you remember all the doubts that swirled about whether or not businesses would be comfortable supporting such a wide-ranging bill. But because of your and all of our work, you and the HRC team were able to build out support on the very day that this bill was introduced in Congress, something that has never been done before in the history of such a civil rights bill. You built the strongest coalition of businesses for full federal LGBTQ equality in history. Now at over 500 businesses, most of your companies here in this room today.
That is the power of the business community walking the talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Employees and customer loyalty are built on how sturdy and dependable those values are throughout the company. And listen, we know there's pressure being put on you now to not speak up as they continue these legislative and policy attacks. For those of you who stepped up immediately, your courage means so much to those of us on the ground. And to those who may have stumbled out the gate but you found your footing, they tried to make you a cautionary tale, but you are a shining example. But I want to speak directly to those who have stepped back in order not to be political. To commit and live into your DEI values is a business decision. The things you do to make your workplace inclusive and welcoming are business decisions. Abandoning your commitment to those values when your own employees and your customers are under attack because of pressure from some lawmakers, that is a political decision. And here is something we know from working to end bullying in schools. It applies just the same in the workplace and in politics. Bullies never stop as long as they know they can push you around with no consequence.
So, the incredible thing about our democracy is that when one vehicle of change is stalled, we just get into another. As the Equality Act has made its way to floor votes but has not yet become law, we've achieved huge victories at the Supreme Court, namely with the Bostock decision that enshrined Title VII protections for LGBTQ people in employment. And I really want to especially thank you in the room, because this was a pretty new tactic in the business community, to join an amicus brief in a suit that had direct liability for your companies. And I know that these asks have increased, and it can be hard to discern where your capital should go. So when businesses weighed in on the Bostock case, they became part of the most sweeping workplace protections for LGBTQ people in this country. Your voice matters in front of the court. Even when we don't get a full win in other cases, you've helped stave off some of the worst case scenarios for millions of LGBTQ people in their communities.
That's right. And now we are seeing a revival of bills based on some of the ugliest homophobic tropes, the same ones we heard from Anita Bryant, and you've heard them too, including calling us groomers. These laws are aimed at demonizing LGBTQ children and their parents, and anti-trans bills are denying access to life-saving care. We have to stand together, not only to oppose the harm, but to actively work to secure protections.
Indeed, from the courts to the states and Congress, we don't have the luxury of pursuing a single path to equality. We need to be at the ready for every ask, because our opponents are diversifying their attacks on our civil and human rights as we speak.
It's sobering, I know. And all of us on stage, of all of us, I have been at this the longest. And you know what? I have never, not once in my lifetime of advocacy, lost hope or lost my energy for this fight, because I was the child Anita Bryant was attacking in Florida. She made my school less safe. She made my community, my state, and my country more dangerous for me. So while the political attacks and headlines might make you think we've gone back in time, we are not living in Anita Bryant's Florida of decades ago. There are more out people, more supportive families, more welcoming faith communities, more unshakable allies, and more companies standing firm on the side of values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And listen, the fact is, Anita Bryant's granddaughter just married her longtime girlfriend. And everyone in this room is going to keep fighting like hell to ensure that our progress is not undone.
Thank you, Nadine. It is up to every single person in this room to push this rock up the hill. I mean it. There is literally nothing we can take for granted right now. Our opponents used to say that kids were not safe around us, LGBTQ adults. They've now turned their sights onto children themselves, making a 12-year-old trans kid just trying to get through a school day the enemy, the dangerous one. I'm a parent like many of you, and I can tell you, your anxiety rises when you're taking your kids to the doctor under normal circumstances. States like Texas are threatening parents with arrest for trying to get the right medical care for their trans kids. The consequences of denying this care can be literally life and death. They are trying to reverse marriage equality, non-discrimination protections, and our other gains. Let no one diminish these attacks and their impact as politics. This isn't politics. This is unconscionable. Thank you. If any of you have ever witnessed a playground bully in action, you know the look. The look, the child being bullied who has pleading eyes directed at the bystanders, the look that says, "Make it stop. Make this stop." Some of us were those bullied kids. And some of those bullies have grown up, and those bullies are being sworn into office and using the full weight of their positions to attack the most vulnerable among us. We need to make this stop. And we can, but only if we are unrelenting in our fight, in our collective push together. We stand on the right side of history. We, everyone in this room, we share a vision for an inclusive and equal country where every child is protected, every family is respected, and we secure equality and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Thank you.
Please welcome Chief Legal Officer at Uber, Tony West.
Hello, Out and Equal. It is so good to be here with all of you at this incredible event. The first time we've been together since 2019. Let me thank Out and Equal CEO Erin Uritis, her incredible team, the board, for the vital work that you do every single day to advance the rights of LGBTQ people in workplaces around the world. I also want to give a shout out to my Uber colleagues who are here with me. Now, not trying to brag, but I've had the honor of being the executive sponsor for Uber's Pride ERG for about the last 5 years. And I have seen how their energy, how their passion, their tenacity has helped guide Uber further down the path of inclusivity and equality. It's led to things like supporting LGBTQ-owned businesses through our supplier diversity program. It's led to offering gender and identity inclusive parental leave, adoption, and dependent care benefits, and providing transgender employees with services that support all aspects of their journey through partnerships with medical carriers. I am so proud of the work Uber Pride has helped us to accomplish. And yet, as proud as I am of how far we've come, I'm mindful that we still have an awful long way to go. The fact is that as much as we strive to make every platform experience safe, respectful, and positive, we've not always lived up to that aspiration. We've sometimes fallen short, particularly when it comes to helping transgender and non-binary drivers navigate the unique challenges they face. And that is not okay. But here's my pledge. We will never stop striving to do better. Because it's not enough for Uber or for any company to simply hire more LGBTQ workers. That's a start, but it's not enough. It's not enough to say that we support our LGBTQ colleagues. We actually have to show up with actions that matter. That means building workplace cultures where people are invited to be who they truly are. Spaces that ensure diverse voices are heard, and where people don't just exist, they thrive. And each of us, no matter how we identify, each of us has a role to play in creating that inclusive reality. That is why I am so honored to be here with you today in Las Vegas. As an ally, I am thankful to play my part. You know, throughout my career, whether it's been in the public sector or the private sector, I've been privileged to stand with this community, whether it was as the Associate Attorney General of the United States in the Obama administration, arguing successfully to reverse the government's shameful position on the Defense of Marriage Act and help open the door to marriage equality, or as the General Counsel of a global company pushing our business to be one of the first to publicly oppose anti-LGBTQ legislation cropping up in states like North Carolina, Mississippi, and others. And I have to tell you, over the years, I've been asked more than a few times, where does it come from? This commitment to LGBTQ plus equality. After all, people will say to me, you're a straight black guy. Why do you care so much? I care because I know what it's like to be stereotyped and prejudged, to be misunderstood, to navigate the perils of code switching and intersectionality, to be on the receiving end of assumptions that are dehumanizing, demoralizing, and even dangerous. I care because if I've learned anything from working on civil rights, equity, and inclusion issues over the years, it is this. The struggle for equality may show up in different ways and in different places, but it always stems from fear and is always wrong. And when the rights of any group in America are under assault, we must all speak up. I care because I believe in the promise of this country. I know America has yet to live up to Dr. King's aspiration of a beloved community. I know we're a nation born with bigotry and patriarchy written into our founding documents. But I also know this. Americans have always envisioned a better, more just future for our country. And I know that in every generation since our founding, there have been those who've had the courage to push open the door of equality just a little bit wider. Not always leaders whose names you know, but more often the extraordinary, ordinary people whose names you'll never know. Regular folks doing their level best to live lives of purpose and dignity, folks who stood up for justice when given the chance. Folks like my parents, both of whom were raised in the deep, segregated South, who married young and moved way across the country to San Francisco where they didn't know a soul, and who raised my two younger sisters and me to appreciate how all movements for equality are connected. That the fight for racial equality, that's connected to the fight for marriage equality. That defending our religious freedom, that's connected to defending reproductive freedom. That protecting the rights of citizens, that is connected to safeguarding the dignity of immigrants. From Selma to Stonewall, we are all connected. So whether we share the same identity or not, each of us has the power to stand up for somebody else. I know I stand here today because somebody somewhere stood up for me. And when we stand up for one another, we stand up for us all. That is the spirit in this room today. That's why we're here in Las Vegas. To network, yes. To share ideas and best practices, yes. To have a little fun, maybe play a little blackjack, yes. But we are also here because we know that we still have work to do to make our country live up to the promise of equality that we have made to ourselves. Because friends, as long as nearly half of all LGBTQ+ workers feel they must remain closeted at work, we have work to do. As long as there are trans kids who are afraid to go to school, we have work to do. As long as public libraries succumb to pressure to remove LGBTQ+ books from their shelves, or politicians weaponize gender-affirming care for minors by calling it child abuse, we have work to do. We've come a long way. We've come a long way in this country, no doubt. But Coretta Scott King, she was right. Freedom is never really won. You have to win it in every generation. So y'all, we have to keep pushing. In ways both big and small, we have to keep pushing. In classrooms and in C-suites, from playgrounds to church pews, wherever you sit, whatever your job, there are opportunities for you to push that door of equality open just a little bit wider. Harvey Milk said it best. It takes no compromise to give people their rights. It takes no money to respect the individual. It takes no survey to remove repressions. But friends, what it does take is something each of us has. It takes empathy. It takes decency. It takes humility. It takes civility. It takes love. It takes courage, because there is no love without courage. It takes standing together against all injustice and discrimination wherever and however it shows up. It takes all of us, which is why, whether I'm in the government or out, in the public sector or in the private sector, I will always, always be honored to stand by you, to stand for you, to stand with you. Enjoy this conference. Thank you very much.
If you passed me on the street,
or in a restaurant,
or on a plane, would you think that I was kind?
would you wonder if I was extraordinary?
Or if I might dream of changing the world? Because if I saw you on the street,
Or in a park?
I might wonder how you became the person that you are. Are you an author, an athlete, or studying to become a doctor?
Do you dream of moving mountains with your words? Or building bridges with your heart?
Have you ever performed in front of a crowd?
Introduced the President of the United States?
Or inspired people to be themselves and follow their dreams? When you imagine the life that you want to build,
It's probably pretty close to the life.
that I want to build.
It's probably pretty close to the life that we all want to build. And even if I don't yet understand how you became you,
Or how brave you had to be,
Or how many times you had to take a deep breath.
and know that you were just one step away from showing the world how incredible you are.
I do know this. If I passed you on the street, and if we started talking,
I would listen.
I would learn, and I would accept you for who you truly are.
even if the world isn't always the place we want it to be,
We are always the ones who can change it
we just have to listen.
Respect one another,
and decide.
that today is the day that
Everything changes.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad I can be here today. My name is Gia Parr, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm so grateful to be here, as I just said, and I hope that you found that video as moving as I did. I'd like to tell you about Gender Cool and our connection to O&Equal's powerful work advancing LGBTQ equality in the workplace. It begins with our stories. Here is mine. For as long as I can remember, I knew I was a girl. I knew this before anyone else around me did. I remember drawing a self-portrait in the first grade. I drew a girl with long, flowing hair. Now I have it. I felt so happy drawing that portrait because even though that wasn't how the world saw me back then, I knew in my heart that image looking back at me was me. That portrait started the most important journey of my life. With years of love and support from my family, I wrote a letter to my entire middle school telling them I was Gia and I use she, her pronouns. While I'm grateful that letter was met with acceptance from my school and community, I know that this isn't always the case for my peers. And that's why I feel a responsibility to use my voice for change. With the love and support from my friends and family, I am unstoppable. I'm a freshman at the University of Southern California. Yes, fight on. An author, a global voice for progress with Nike, a model and actress, and a proud founding member and now board of director for the Gender Cool Project. Gender Cool is a storytelling campaign and movement with a simple mission: help replace misinformed opinions with positive, powerful experiences, meeting transgender and non-binary young people who are thriving. It's who we are as people and as leaders that connects us to O&Equal. We are the next generation workforce. We are your future colleagues, manager, C-suite, and board members. And just like I said in the video, even if the world isn't always the place we want it to be, we are always the ones to change it. We just have to listen. Here's a great example of how listening can result in a powerful impact in the workplace. Thank you so much, everyone.
I am Rebecca. I use she, her pronouns. I'm 14 years old, and I'm a Gender Cool champion.
We started Gender Cool to help replace people's misinformed opinions with powerful, positive experiences, meeting transgender, non-binary youth who are thriving. That's where Gender Cool comes in with the reverse mentorship.
I just got off my first call with Hanzu, part of VMware, and that was so cool. I learned so much. My brain cannot comprehend it all.
No, you don't want to monopolize your time, but it's like she's one of these people you wish you could spend more time with, right? Because she's that interesting at 14, which is crazy.
They even got to learn from me too, which I really liked.
What I learned from Rebecca is the small things and the everyday actions matter. So for example, do you have your pronouns up when you are in your meetings so that you are giving others an opportunity to also identify themselves?
Makes you feel really good about where the world is going.
Hi, everyone. So that was me. I'm Rebecca, and my pronouns are she, her. At 8 years old, I learned the word transgender, and something just clicked. It was like putting on your favorite pair of jeans. They fit so right. They made me feel more me. I finally had language to explain to my parents and friends who I was, and I knew I wasn't alone. My dad is a Lutheran pastor, and my mom and dad told me, God does not make mistakes. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Now, I'm 15 years old. I'm an honors student, an author like Gia, and I love field hockey and musical theater. As a genderqueer champion, I've had the honor to be a part of experiences with so many different companies, including that reverse mentorship you just saw. I've been able to peek inside today's workplace, learn a bit about how y'all do what y'all do, and share what I would need there to thrive as someone who happens to be transgender. What I've learned is that your companies are filled with amazing people who want to build inclusive workplaces, but you don't always know how. That's why you need us. Gen Z is focused on creating change. We don't see the problems in front of us as too big, and we're not worried about the way things have always been done. We aren't afraid to use our voices to spark movements for change. We just see things differently, and our different perspectives can solve challenges. Now, I'm so happy to introduce you to my friend Landon and a special guest who has been a part of the genderqueer story since the very beginning. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Landon Ritchie, and I use he, him pronouns. I am so happy to be back here at O&ESummit2022, and I'm especially proud to be standing next to someone I consider to be a mentor and super ally.
Thank you, Landon. And I will have to say, I'm loving that song. Top Gun, the movie that brings both of our generations together. That's exactly what we're talking about today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Eric Day. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Small Business at Dell Technologies. Landon, I'll never forget the day I learned about you. And actually, I knew Landon before he knew me. We shared a lot of the same passion for driving change and advocating for what is right. Personally, I have spent a lot of time testifying and advocating for equal rights, no matter who you are or who you love. I know you've done the same as well, Landon.
Yeah, you're right. I first testified at the age of 14. I'm now a junior, 19 years old, a junior at the University of Houston, studying political science. Go Cougs. And in spite of the fact that some in our state wish us harm, in spite of the fact that my family and I have fought hard over the years for the simple right to live my life, I am here and I am thriving. Here I am, a college kid, standing with you, Eric, on this stage in front of thousands of people, and all I feel is gratitude. I know what it is like to spend upwards of 8 hours in the state capitol, and quite often more, waiting to testify until nearly midnight when the lights had long been turned off and most of the folks, including some of the legislators, had left. You could have left too, but you waited, and then it was your turn. And you spoke in support of transgender and non-binary youth and against these hateful bills. You spoke in support of me.
Sorry, this is pretty emotional for me. I know the rights that we have, I know the rights that we all have been hard fought for and not ever a given. Showing up for you, Landon, for us, was never a question for me. We need to all come together to build a future workplace that is diverse, inclusive, and one that encourages you to bring your true, authentic selves to work each and every day. That's the only way innovation can thrive in our companies. That starts with working together, showing up for each other, and advocating for equality each and every day. It's something I'm honored and proud to do alongside my friend Landon.
And that brings me back to O&ESummit2022. Because 3 years ago, I saw for myself what it looks like when we come together in support of transgender and non-binary youth. In 2019, I was at O&ESummit2022 with 6 of my champion peers. We did a gender cool thing at breakfast, and we got the surprise of our lives. Watch this video.
Hi, I'm Kai, and I learned from a young age, younger than I am now, that confidence opens so many doors in life. It allows me to show the world who I am.
This gender cool community is providing leadership, providing role models, and showing the world how to live as better people. Thank you. Thank you all for all of that.
As a corporation and as a business leader, it is my responsibility to put my money and my actions where my mouth is. So today, I'm happy to announce a $50,000 partnership with Gender Cool. This whole experience on stage and watching that video brings back a ton of emotions of that morning, just flooding back to me. Clearly, Landon, you and all the champions have affected me deeply, and I know that I'm not alone in this room. You all are incredible kids, and we are so happy to support you. I think many of us were here that day and at that event felt the same way and hopefully feel the same way today. We began this journey with Gender Cool that has been one of the most gratifying experiences of not only my career, but my entire life. So much of what I agreed to become, so much so that I've agreed to become Gender Cool's first strategic advisor, and now I'm a proud board member as well.
Gender Cool has done real work with y'all. There's a culture at Dell Technologies that really pushes for equality and ensuring that everyone feels like they can bring their whole selves to work each and every day. We feel proud to partner with you, and I personally feel prouder to serve on the board with you as well.
Thanks, Landon. We know that to be a competitive company, to thrive in the ever-changing technology industry, we have got to be a company that you, Landon, would feel proud to work at. As you've seen, this passion is shared at the highest levels of Dell. My friend, my colleague, our Chief Marketing Officer, Allison Dew, wanted to send a message to you and all the champions and everyone in the room why this is personal for her and why pursuing this next generation of extraordinary, diverse, and innovative talent is an absolute priority and must. Let's take a look.
Thank you, Eric and Landon. What an amazing example of the power of using your voices to change the world. I'm so proud of my role as the executive sponsor for the Pride ERG at Dell. I've been in this role for about 4.5 years, and while I came to this role already an ally, I don't think I really understood what I could do to help the community. I'll use self-ID as an example. When Eric and I started having this conversation, I just didn't understand why it mattered. Candidly, it was not a problem that I had personal experience living, and I just didn't understand why it was so important. But I spent the time to talk to Eric, to talk to others in the community, to stop and listen to the experience of those in the community who are living this every single day. That helped me understand and helped me change my perspective and helped me become a better ally, and in partnership with Pride, helped us institute our self-ID policies. At Dell Technologies, we live our culture code every single day. There is so much going on in the world, particularly over the last 3 years. From the inequities of COVID to the impact of the murder of George Floyd to legislation against healthcare for transgender kids, there is so many things that we are worried about every single day. And together, we are leaning in to listen, to change policies, to really engage in a lean-in process to understand where we can uniquely lend our voice and how importantly we create a community for our own employees where they can bring their whole selves to work and show up as themselves every single day. Landon and the generations who follow him are changing the workplace by having a voice and expecting our culture to match their voice. Together with Gender Cool, O&ESummit2022, the companies in the room and around the world, we are creating the workplace of the future. We are fighting discrimination. We are fighting microaggressions, bullying, and legislation that discriminates. And together, we are creating a world that drives humanity and human progress. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Landon, for your leadership and the courage to always be yourself and speak your truth. Your bravery makes us all better, as a company, for our customers, and for our world.
Now here's the good part. Empowering individuals like Landon, individuals who have this innovative, passionate spirit within them, is incredibly important as we work towards building the workplace of the future. It is these diverse perspectives that will help us drive progress, and more importantly, it's what will continue to make our workplace as successful as possible. A workplace I am proud to have spent the last 2 decades at, and a workplace that I am proud to say will welcome Landon this summer for his first professional internship. Thank you, Landon. We are so excited for all the bright and innovative and groundbreaking ideas you're going to bring to us at Dell Technologies. Everyone, please, once again, help me congratulate Landon on this amazing, amazing accomplishment.
How about that? Congratulations again, Landon. We brought the Gender Cool Champions to Summit in 2019. I feel like I am seeing an extension of my own family grow up and thrive. And I am thrilled to be on stage with you, Stella.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of standing on stage with some phenomenal people. Today, I am really in awe, getting to stand beside the youngest transgender person to ever testify in front of the United States Senate. Stella, you did that. You made history. And I want you to know that what you did, your testimony in support of the Equality Act, was not only brave, it helped to move us all forward. Until the bill becomes law of the land, the journey of changing hearts and minds along the way is propelled by you, your peers, and all of us who dare to be ourselves and tell our stories. And so, Stella, what did it feel like to make history?
Erin, I gotta tell you, when I woke up that morning, I was definitely not thinking about making history. I wanted to do my part and contribute to a long line of people who have made it possible for me to be here today. A sense of calm came over me when I entered that hearing because I had a purpose. And when I came out of that hearing, I was floored at the amount of notifications that were on my phone and the attention that my testimony was getting. I knew a lot of things could happen on that day, but I never thought that I'd go viral.
Seeing you testify was also deeply moving for me as a mom. I have 2 incredible children, and my youngest is genderqueer. That day, history was made for our country and in my home. My child could see themselves in your testimony, and they are going to thrive because they have role models like you and the other champions, and because more importantly than anything else I do, I will protect my kids' opportunities at happiness and fulfillment with the love and urgency of the mama bear I am.
Our voices matter. It really hit me when I was 12. I lobbied state legislators for the first time with my mom. Having adults listen and respond to me at such a young age showed me how my power and my voice can help create change. It's very empowering, especially at such a young age. People need to understand that transgender and non-binary young people are here. We're ambitious, we're goal-driven, and we're speaking up. And the question that I want to ask everyone here today is, are you listening?
Stella, that is a question that bears repeating. Are you listening? Because when Out and Equal talks about the future of work, about what the future of work actually looks and feels like, it's this rainmaker standing right next to me. It's Stella and all these champions you've just met. They are the future of work, and they are here now. So are you doing the real work? Are you taking the real steps? Are you having the sometimes uncomfortable conversations with your colleagues, managers, C-suite leaders to push and build workplaces that would interest a superstar like Stella?
And are you pushing your companies to step into the national conversation in support of hundreds of thousands of young transgender and non-binary people like me who are being told that we shouldn't exist? Like, how is this the United States of America, and how is this happening?
It's happening because we collectively took for granted rights and protections that we thought were immutable, and they aren't. The corporate world can no longer sit idle as attacks against our community, against amazing leaders like Stella, are normalized. Things aren't normal. And our wake-up call is here.
I can tell you that I am unstoppable in speaking up for my own rights and my community. And I need you to step up and help your companies understand that silence is no longer an option. Because it's not about politics, it's about humans. This is about being on the right side of history. This is about being unstoppable together.
Please welcome Chief Belonging Officer at Splunk and member of the Out and Equal Board of Directors, Roldy Leva.
All right. Well, this is like the perfect time for me to come out right as all of you are eating. The only thing more coveted than the hour before lunch is right at lunch. So I appreciate this opportunity to be here with all of you today. Listen, I'm going to go off script for just a moment, which always makes the teleprompter people a little nervous, but I promise I'll keep it brief. I'm just reflecting on what I've heard and experienced here these last couple of days, the stories that we've heard and experienced these last couple of days. And what's up for me is the word fragility. The fragility of progress, the fragility of our rights, the fragility of democracy, fragility. Like, we can't take these things for granted. I know. I identify as a Cubano. Any Cubanos in the house? I left my home of Cuba on a fishing boat when I was 5, on our way to the US, seeking a better tomorrow, left everything behind except for our hope. And hope is just as contagious as fear. And we live in a world of fear, but we need hope and the call to action that inspires for us to ensure that the rights and the privileges, the opportunity to be seen and respected for the whole of who you are, that thing continues and endures. So I guess where I'm at is our identities. If the last couple of years has taught us anything, our identities, our humanity, our existence is threatened and under attack. And it takes more than wishful thinking for those things to stop. It requires all of us to convert the awareness and the hope that we have into thoughtful action and go out and cast your voice. In a world that increasingly wants us to whisper, we need to yell. And we need to yell not in here, but we need to yell in the tribes that are not in here, because this is our echo chamber, this is our tribe, these are our people. So cast your voice by casting your vote this midterm and every election season. It's the only way. It's the only way we're going to be able to continue to be seen and feel that sense of belonging that all of us are entitled to. So with that, let me go back to script and tell you how excited I am to introduce our guest today for the Fireside Chat, Jillian Mercado, and I love rolling that R. Jillian Mercado is a Latinx actress, an advocate for greater representation in her industry. She's a model who's appeared in campaigns for Diesel, for Target, for Olay. She's on the cover of the first digital September issue of Teen Vogue. Now, many of you know her, and you've probably seen her as Maribel in a recurring role on the Showtime series, The L Word Generation Q, where I think she's absolutely amazing. And I was just chatting with her, and we talked a little bit about her life story, and she talked about growing up. She developed a love for fashion, but she found that the industry's Eurocentric and ableist beauty standards meant that she didn't see herself represented. She's a native New Yorker, born to Dominican parents. Any Dominicans out there? You gotta be louder than that. All right, we'll do that again later. Dominican parents and diagnosed with muscular dystrophy in her early teens, she resolved to redress the inequality by entering the fashion industry herself. She studied a degree in marketing at FIT. She went on to intern at Allure magazine in a bid to, as she says, learn the politics behind fashion so that I could hire people who looked like me. She leveraged her platform to push for greater representation in the industry. Her activism, which focuses on the intersection of gender and disability, has included working with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to reduce inequality. It's one of the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, please join me in offering the loudest, let's not whisper, let's yell, warm of applause, Jillian Mercado. Come on stage. Keeping it real.
Hola.
Hola.
Closer, get a little closer to you.
Scoot in, right? We're just so far away. Okay, here we go. So, just take a second.
Woo, wow. Look at all these beautiful people here. My God. Also, I heard Dominicanos were out here. I mean, I'm gonna give you A for effort, but it was not loud enough. And as a Dominican, I know. Dime otra vez? Okay, I'll take it.
So we had an opportunity, we've met a couple of times now. We had a bit of a rehearsal yesterday. We were in this space.
Where?
There was nobody in the audience.
Not one soul.
And what did you say to me?
I know, I forgot.
You forgot? Oh, we talked about how, oh my gosh, like 5,000 people. I'm like, you got this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got this. So
and here we are.
And here we are. Okay, so listen, I find that the only way to start is really with the story of you, right? You can't spell belonging without B's, and let's just be, and let's talk about the stories of us. So cuéntanos, and I'm wondering if they're getting the Spanish on the, we'll just test that, right? Cuéntanos, tell us a little bit more about the story of you.
Well, I like to, feel like I'm a multi-dimensional person. So I am part of 4 beautiful communities as of now. It grows. I don't think I never ever stop adding identities to me. But at the moment, I am a queer, disabled, Latina woman.
Yes.
And thank you. And all of those identities, I realized as I was getting older that they make me stronger. Each one has their own universe, their own planets, their own stars. And once you see that in like a bird's eye view, it's so beautiful to have those in one body.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the that was good. The intersection of those identities and how that shows up for you, and specifically, I have found as a Latino man growing up in a Cuban Catholic household, the tension between my identity as a gay man and the expectation of what it meant to be a man and my father's paradigm of that. So help me understand, and it is, I think there's a nuance and a complexity to being a member of the community in Black and brown communities. So tell us a little bit more about how that intersected with you and your family.
I mean, it was difficult. I think the most difficult one was being part of the queer community, especially because my parents come from a very traditional Catholic upbringing. And it was hard for them to accept that times are changing. We're more outspoken. We've always been here. Right. They just chose to not look at it. They chose to be blinded from it. But if they really focused, on our history, knowing that we were here from way in the beginning, from the first, oh, we got a surprise.
I've never been told as a Cuban that I have not been loud enough, so this is great. I appreciate this. I hope this works. Okay.
Double mic, love it. I just forgot what I was saying. Oh no. It was just very hard to be myself, and I think if one of my communities are not being accepted, none of them are, because you either take all of them or you take nothing.
That's right.
So that's how I've been living my life.
So let's talk about you identify as a person with a disability.
Yes.
What is so up for me is the relative, the lack and the relative absence of representation of women of color, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera, writing the stories of people of color. But then you layer on the additional sort of dimension of individuals with disabilities and our sexual orientation and all these, and gender identity, and it's almost absent altogether. So I guess two questions for you. One is, how have you navigated that space in the industry? And how has the industry, how have you experienced that the industry has grown from what you've been able to help them see and expose them to?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy, I want to say. It's been very difficult to stand strong for your communities. I feel like specifically with the disability community, we've been silenced for a very long time. Other people have spoken for us, not with us. And so that makes it very hard to just be heard and represented in any form of media. Lucky for me, and honestly a blessing for them, that I'm Latina, so I'm loud, and I stand strong. Thank you. And it's hard for me to back down because I'm also, side note, probably because I'm notorious that I'm stubborn. So that helps.
You're a tourist and you're stubborn. I think you said you're a tourist and you're stubborn.
No, I'm not.
You're a tourist.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, being a part of something where you are always looked at as the first of doing things.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience, and I sympathize a lot with people. We're all ignorant in one shape, way, or form. It's just about, there's a difference of being ignorant and not wanting to learn, and there's the other difference of not knowing, because you don't see it. So how are you supposed to know if you don't see it? And that's the point of, being represented in all sorts of media, so that when you're confronted with someone like myself, there's more of a constructive conversation than ignorance.
Yeah, I love how you bring it in, like you
have to.
You demand your space and you own the space. And so let's talk about representation then from a different angle, and the words and the infinite wisdom of Salt and Peppa. Let's talk about sex.
Yeah.
So everyone's paying attention now, so this is the thing, right? There was a scene, a sex scene, a love scene that you engage in the L Word.
Yes.
That has caught a lot of attention for the number of firsts it represented, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about what that meant for you. Well, what that meant for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was everything. Well, I would like to do a little interactive poll. It might be cringy, so apologies, but we're here already, right? Who learned about sex through porn? Okay, a few hands. Who learned sex through their parents? Watching or conversation? So I learned, yeah, we should applaud for that, I guess. I guess that everybody's in therapy, I'm guessing, for the watching part. Well, I learned about it through looking or being kind of like that sort of troubled kid, not troubled kid, but a kid that got into a lot of trouble. I used to have a box TV. Anyone know what a box TV is? I see the.
Can we describe a box TV?
It's like a little box that you get all free channels.
Oh, okay.
The little black box.
All right, I get it.
Yeah. So I had that growing up, and there was a channel specifically Channel 71 and 73.
Oh, wow.
I remember.
Did it have the wavy lines? Or you had the...
No, it
you
was
said the whole-
high def. Yeah, oh no, it was there.
Okay.
I saw more than I should have seen. But my parents never had that conversation with me at all. I think it was because they grew up in and we're still in a very ableist mindset, in a world that's very, this world wasn't really designed for people like myself. So they didn't, I think, bless their souls, and I love my parents so much, but they didn't understand how someone with a disability would have romance or have sex for that matter. It didn't compute in their mind. So I wasn't lucky enough to have that awkward conversation with my parents. But I did learn it through porn.
You learned it through porn?
Yeah.
All right.
The only bad thing about that, there's so many bad things about that, but one major part of why it was horrible for me was because I couldn't identify. One, I couldn't identify with straight sex, but no one looked like me whatsoever. So then I was like, okay, cool, then maybe a television show will help. Not a single television show that I watched had any depiction of someone with disability having romance. It didn't even have to be full-on sex, just romance.
Just romance.
Yeah. Falling in love, having a boyfriend, a girlfriend, they-them situation, nothing. So I was like, okay, maybe movies. This is where it gets interesting. Movies that I grew up watching that had some sort of person with a disability, they were always dying. That was not fun to watch.
Yeah.
They were dying, they were helping somebody else, but it was never beautiful love, romance at all. So when I had this opportunity, I'm bringing it back, don't worry. When I had this opportunity.
You have 10 minutes, so we can take all the time.
I know, I'm like, damn. When I had this opportunity to be that representation that I didn't see myself when I was younger, a quick Google search made me feel even more intrigued to do it, because I still couldn't find anything online or any movies that really represented that. So that's why it was really important for me to show authentic romance on television.
And I just...
Thank you. Thanks.
I mean, that struggle is real.
It's real.
It's real. And what we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human.
No.
And I love that you brought that.
Yeah, it's all about humanizing. That's all we want at the end of the day, is to feel as humanized as possible.
Yeah.
You know, we just want to live. If you think about the world and the planet is floating in space, and we're having trouble it makes no sense to me. Why worry about anything? You know? Anyways.
I think owning your story and loving yourself through that process is the bravest thing you'll ever do. So I just appreciate not just how you live that, but how you role model that for others. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna start going a little deep.
Okay.
We rehearsed this yesterday, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how we pivot from salt and pepper to deep, but we're gonna do this.
We got this.
We're gonna try this. So first, let's talk about Black Disabled Creative, right? Excuse me. And for those of you who don't know, Black Disabled Creative is a resource that you co-founded that helps address the lack of the relative absence of representation of Black and brown people with a disability in the industry, right? So. Tell us a little bit more about that. What prompted you to start that, and what impact has it had?
Well, again, this always starts with me being stubborn and not seeing the world how I actually see it in my own living space. But this was in the midst of COVID, and when we were all terrified that we didn't even know what tomorrow was, if tomorrow was tomorrow. I started seeing a lot of people posting about top Black restaurants and top authors and all of that, but every single time that I would see these lists, I never found anyone doing top disabled creatives or top disabled actors or literally nothing. And it really impacted me because going back to not seeing myself on television or media, I was just not seeing myself anywhere. or like acknowledge that we exist. So a friend of mine and myself, we created this platform where industry people can search up, because a lot of industry people go like, oh, I want to diversify my workplace, but always leave out my community. So it's not kind of cheating. You're not really diversifying anything.
All right.
You know? So I'm like, you're not truly diversifying if you're excluding a huge percentage of our population, which, by the way, it's 1 out of 5 people in this world.
With a disability. That's right.
With a disability, which includes invisible or physical or visible disabilities, which is a lot of people that you're leaving out of the conversation. So, you know, I've had the privilege that now I have a team and I have people that understand me and, you know, the message that I'm trying to bring with every job or anything that I do, a lot of people don't have that privilege.
Yep.
So I wanted to create somewhere where these brands don't have an excuse to not hire. They're all very talented. They work as equally as hard, if not harder, you know, to do what they love doing. And that's all we want, is to hire people who love what they do. So I created that.
I love that. And how long has that been?
2 years.
2 years. And how many people have?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. And a lot more, I think, is the opportunity, right?
Yeah,
so,
always.
I want to wrap up here with the last few minutes that we have by reciting something from Alexander Leon. And I don't know if you know Alexander Leon, but Alexander Leon is an LGBTQ+ writer and activist, I believe, out of the UK. And back in 2020, wrote something that went viral on Twitter. And I want to read it because I want to make sure I get it right, because it is so powerful. It says, "Queer people don't grow up as ourselves. We grow up playing a version of ourselves that sacrifices authenticity to minimize humiliation and prejudice. The massive task of our adult lives is to unpick which parts of ourselves are truly us and which parts we've created to protect us," right? So he's talking about the struggle of fitting in versus belonging. We know fitting in is the very opposite of belonging, right?
Yeah.
And in as much as we want to be able to take off our masks and just be, it's hard. So I guess 2 questions for you. One is, how does that message resonate with you? And what's an example of, if you could leave someone with a call to action here, of a way to remove the mask and step into our truth?
Ooh, that is giving Oprah.
Is it Oprah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's nothing under your seats, but...
Damn it. No one's getting a free car? Okay. You know it does, because I think, like, well, for me, it was middle school, and I feel like a lot of people, I'm gathering, middle school was such a pivotal moment of everyone's life trying to figure out who they were. But I was very oblivious to the ableist society that I live in. So I had to put a mask on to fit in anywhere and everywhere. To the point that, like, I mean, I feel like we're all old enough, but we had a MySpace account.
MySpace.
Okay, all my photos were above the shoulder because I didn't want to show myself. I didn't want anyone to know that I had a disability at all. And I was like, maybe if I trick them, I would feel more of a belonging. And that was just suppressing who I actually am. You know, and I think that we should all acknowledge our worth and that all of us are worthy in every shape and in every form. And we should celebrate that at every second we can, you know? Yeah. And if anybody has a problem with that, that's not my fault.
That's not your fault.
That's your fault. That's a you problem.
That's
right
their problem, exactly
right. So I had to navigate that, and I'm learning every day. I still have, like we were talking about imposter syndrome and how to navigate that, but I still have moments where, you know, I'm like, do I actually fit in? And am I pretending to be this optimistic person, you know? But at the end of the day, when I go home and sleep at night, I realize that no, I'm always living as authentic as I can as possible, you know? In a place and in a community that I hope that I live to see the next day, you know? And I have a beautiful community that will always be there for me no matter what, you know? And I think, if anything, is just to humanize your neighbor. That's it.
That's it.
That's all.
Empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
It isn't.
You know?
I love it. Listen, I love that story. I love the beauty of you, of the story of you. I think each of us has a lived experience and a learned experience that informs the whole of who we are. And the power of chats like this and of stories like yours is that by way of your courage, of role modeling, the very things that we espouse here in this forum around authenticity, you're helping others find their voice and hopefully the courage and the opportunity to also step into their truth. So thank you for that. There's a quote from Dr. Bertice Berry that I often recite. It is, when you move with purpose, you collide with destiny.
Oh, love that.
I'm gonna say that one more time.
Say it again.
Yeah, when you move with purpose, you collide with destiny.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And I hope you have found destiny in this moment.
I did.
All right, well, folks, listen, Jillian Mercado is here for muchas gracias.
Gracias.
And we will see you again as Maribel on season 3.
November 18th.
November 18th.
Let me just plug that in.
It's a shameless plug, but on November 18th on Showtime, right?
On Showtime.
All right, well, muchas gracias. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, cheers to you. Yeah, let's do it. Oh my God, this looks great.
Our people are difference makers. The first ones to not only show up, but speak up. Here, that's the bar. We rely on those voices, the voices of people invested in advancing racial equality and economic opportunity. Because we know to truly move toward progress, we need more of that. We need you. So yeah, we're asking you to show up. The artsy friend, the budding activist, the favorite aunt, the not-so-secret hobbyist, your whole self. And with our careers in finance, technology, business, and so many other areas, you will find a place where every part of you will thrive. This is a call to join our team, to be the one voice that can strengthen our many, and together, the ones to enact change. So bring it. Bring you.
Hello, Out and Equal, and hello to our Bank of America teammates. What an amazing few days we've had at the summit, underscoring our shared commitment to the future of work and next-gen leadership. Thank you, Aaron, and the entire Out and Equal team for building a place where we are unstoppable. I am proud to be an Out at Work leader, executive sponsor to Employee Network, a parent, and now an Out and Equal board member. At Bank of America, we often ask ourselves, what would you like the power to do? We, this incredible community of change agents at Out and Equal, have enormous power to create the workplaces and communities we want and deserve, not just for today, but also for tomorrow's leaders. But our work does not stop here. We recognize the urgent need to address the relationship between racial inequality and the lack of economic opportunity around the world. In 2020, the bank committed $1.25 billion over 5 years to this important work. And we look to Out and Equal as a community partner that can help lift barriers to economic mobility for the entire LGBTQ+ community. We are taking intentional actions to ensure our progress is unstoppable. We are proud to have funded and co-developed the Diverse Leadership Initiative with Out and Equal, which supports our shared mission to increase the pipeline of LGBTQ+ talent in Fortune 500 companies by providing toolkits and trainings and mentorship opportunities for employers and underrepresented mid-career talent and Gen Z employees. And we also congratulate the 2021 and 2022 classes of diverse fellows. And now I want you to hear from our bank teammates who inspire us every day to be unstoppable.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Powell, and my pronouns are he, him, his. My journey began knowing at an early age that I was different from other little girls. I remember as early as 2nd grade telling my mom, "Pocket pants, Mommy," because I hated wearing dresses and only wanted to wear pants, specifically with pockets. I was a tomboy at heart. Fast forward to 2019, I'm having a conversation with my ex-girlfriend about the insecurities I've had with my body since I was a young girl. She asked me if I've ever considered transitioning from female to male. While I've always fantasized about living my life publicly as a man, I would suppress those feelings. How would my family, friends, and colleagues respond to my transition? My biggest concern? I would be a black man in America. Ultimately, she said, "You deserve to live your life authentically." This was the encouragement I needed, and it gave me faith in embracing my true identity as a black man. You could say this is when I became unstoppable. Three months later, I started hormone therapy. While my siblings were supportive, I knew the tougher conversation would be with my dad. He's a traditional, old-school Jamaican man. I made the decision to speak with him in person. Filled with nerves, my palms are sweaty, my heart was racing. I shared with him, I'm transitioning from female to male. He paused for a few seconds and asked me if I was sure about my decision. My dad was the first person to start calling me by my chosen name. At the time of my transition, I'd been with the bank for 4 years. I learned about the LGBTQ+ employee resource group, the bank's extensive benefits, and the life event services team, which provided an assigned counselor throughout my transition. My leaders and colleagues were tremendously proud and supportive. Yes, there were questions, including the awkward ones, but I gave them grace and helped them understand my journey. That's how allies are created. Next, I traded my behind-the-scenes analytical role for a client-facing role as a business banking relationship manager. This put me in a position to help business owners in the communities I most relate to, LGBTQ+ and people of color. My identity as a black trans male has become my superpower to connect with my clients and make our connection stronger. Now, my husband and I are embarking on a new journey. One of the most significant and fulfilling journeys ever. I am now almost 6 months pregnant with our first child, a baby boy. Yes! Well, I'm extremely happy. Our journey to conceive tested us in many ways, but we are unstoppable and resilient as a community. With a supportive husband, great doctors, and incredible benefits from Bank of America, we pushed forward and made fertility possible. I want my story of that little girl who once wore pocket pants and never gave up on living my life authentically to inspire my child to follow his heart in all things and be proud of both his dads. It's the love and support of those around me and in this very room that has given me the power to be unstoppable. Together, we are all unstoppable.
I have 2 sons, Mateo, age 10, and Lucas, age 7. We're a typical, happy family. Lucas is a 7-year-old boy. He has a very tender and gentle heart. He has a great sense of humor. He's very playful. He has very various interests. He loves cats, anything and everything with cats. And from a very young age, he's been very interested in anything that, society has denominated as stereotypical feminine. He loves dolls, he loves unicorns, but he also loves Legos and his Star Wars. When Lucas was about 4 years old, we went to a birthday party. Everything was going well, fun and games. And at the end of the party, they handed out gift bags, blue for boys and red for girls. Lucas got a blue one. And he just looked at it and he was like, Mom, I want the red one. And I said, no, Lucas, we're heading out and, this is the one you got. And I'm sure it's very similar to that red one. And he kept insisting, no, I want the red one, Mom. Please tell them to give me a red one. And at that point, I kind of didn't know what to do. I didn't know the family very well. And I guess maybe I was embarrassed to go and seek, another bag. So I said, no, we're heading out. It's fine. Let's go. Well, this child went into a complete meltdown, started crying and crying and crying, begging me. He kept saying, Mommy, please go tell them I like girl stuff. That was a very tough moment for me, but it was also a pivotal moment for my parenting. Because from then on, I was a lot more conscious about what I provided. And when I bought something for him, I started to consult him. And when I went to a store, I kind of opened up my mind and said, well, maybe he doesn't like this kind of stereotypically boy thing. Maybe I'm going to get him what, people call out as girl things. So it was also a moment where I started to share more with others on his preferences, to make sure that I was advocating for him and that they were treating him the right way. This past January, during Martin Luther King's Day, at school, they did a whole exercise where they cut out hands in different colors, and they did kind of like a collage, and each child was able to write down kind of their hopes and dreams and, inspired in the I Have a Dream speech. And Lucas wrote something along the lines of, I have a dream that we'll live in a world where there's no boy things or girl things and that everyone's treated equally. And that just really kind of touched my heart very deeply and made me think that, he's seeing the differences in the world, but he also sees that we're all one and the same, and that at a very early age, he's understanding that there needs to be this environment of inclusion.
Thank you to Danielle for sharing your story as an ally and a proud, unstoppable parent to Lucas, who will one day be in all of our workplaces. I would like the power to help those that feel like they can't be who they are, be exactly who they are without apologies. I grew up in Chicago, single mom. Woo-hoo, Chicago, we got them? Okay. Single mom, 8 siblings total, 2 sisters, 6 brothers. And so there were certain expectations about how a man should live. Only displaying masculinity, show no weakness. Silly things such as eating a banana in public. You better break that banana and not go for that bite. Oh boy, you're gay. And in all seriousness, little things like that you had to be aware of. Otherwise, you became a target. And I knew I was different growing up. I wasn't like most men in my family. I never truly revealed my sexuality because I'd seen backlash in the community, people being in unnecessary fights, antagonizing individuals because they were feminine or identified as part of the gay community. And so I shaped my lifestyle on what people saw of me as a heterosexual male. I kept ladies out in front, right? Front and center. On the other end of the spectrum, men was not the same. And this was my security, but I knew I couldn't live like that forever. And so because of that, I had to make a decision. It was either my happiness or it was others. And I chose me. I came out as bisexual as part of the bi plus community in my early 20s. So in essence, I came out last year because I'm still in my early 20s. I'm just kidding. This was difficult though, and I'll tell you why. Mom and Dad were leaders of the church. And after coming out to my mom, our relationship changed significantly, along with many others. You know, stepping in a room with family members, it was no longer comfortable or welcoming. And I would receive the awkward hellos and the stares and so forth, and it was heartbreaking. I know most of that was driven through lack of understanding. I was the first to come out in my family. And so I left home to find comfort elsewhere. I moved into my partner's apartment with his parents, where I would climb in through the window and go to his closet, and I stayed there for a year. I was fed, I was taken care of, to and from work, the same routine for a year plus. His parents knew a thing. That was my life. Fast forward years later, I started to get on my feet while building on my own self-confidence in the true me. A new version of myself that I refused to compromise. I read books that promoted self-help, listened to different podcasts about mindset and emotional mastery so that I could truly live freely. And then I started to surround myself with people who truly listen to understand, and we embrace each other right where we are, right? Learning from differences and growing together. My girlfriend Keisha and I, we talk all the time about these types of topics. And I love and support her, and she does the same for me. Hence the reason also I chose Bank of America as a career. Bank of America, wait, whoop, whoop. Okay. This company is so diverse and so inclusive. We've got several employee networking groups that gives us the autonomy to have courageous conversations about bisexuality and understanding, the different dynamics of experiences of all of our teammates. And we continue to learn and grow together. As a leader, that's empowering for me, living my authentic life. And so I'm proud of where I am today and honored that I get to share my story with each one of you. And I hope that it touched a heart, moving them to be free in mind and truly unapologetic for who they are. Let's create a country where people reach their full potential simply because they are free, contributing to a stronger and more lucrative workforce full of unstoppable people. And I say, it's up to us. Thank you.
As you've heard in our stories, we thrive when we are unstoppable in creating a culture where we all belong. I am unstoppable when I am vulnerable.
And I'm unstoppable when I'm truly free. So much of Bank of America's investment that makes us unstoppable in driving a workforce of equality that has flourished under leadership of someone so many of you have gotten to know years, Isabel Porras. Isabel infuses this work with authentic leadership and a passion for advancing every member of this rich, diverse LGBTQ+ community across careers. Please help me welcome to the stage Isabel Porras.
The work that we are doing with the Next Gen Initiative and the Diverse Leaders Fellows is among my proudest and I think some of our most meaningful. Shout out to the fellows. The lack of diversity in corporate leadership is in part a structural problem requiring structural solutions to improve the pipeline. But at the same time, we need to name and remedy individual level challenges to our leadership potential. We have to approach both. And we need to elevate our own self-awareness, individual power, and agency. This work is very personal to me. As a queer Latina, I know firsthand the structural challenges we face, the way paths to the top narrow for people like me and seem to widen for others. And even though these are structural problems, we often talk about these issues interpersonally. Some of us are told that we are the reason that we're not rising, that there is something inside us or our cultures or our communities that's holding us back. And on the other hand, when we do make it, we receive that "you're special" message. But that message comes with a hitch. The subtle messages of, we let you in, but you better stay in line and you better not rock the boat. So I want to tell you about the first time that I got those dual messages, that I was special and that I needed to not rock the boat. Okay, so I went to public schools in Miami Beach. Shout out for Miami Beach. You shouted out Chicago. Miami Beach. Okay, so public schools in Miami Beach. Back in elementary school, I was in a program for gifted students. And only later did I understand that that whole gifted thing was a pretty problematic way to organize students. Now we know that these programs actually worsen inequality because they funnel resources to students that are deemed worthy and remove them from those that they consider, not. But this wasn't apparent to me back then in middle school, okay? So I was very excited to be in gifted. And it also meant that I got to go to another school twice a week because my school didn't have the certified teachers. And even though it was only twice a week, I'm a little nerd, so I was very happy to be getting work and lessons at my level, and I loved learning back then as much as I do now. And of course, that label, gifted, well, actually it's gifted and talented. And who doesn't like to feel special, right? Right? But finally, in 6th grade, someone with the credentials appeared, and we didn't have to go to that other school anymore. Awesome! But no. Let me just tell you that teaching was not really her calling. She ran out of stuff for us to do in like 2 weeks. So our twice-a-week special advanced classes consisted of watching movies and playing cards most of the time. So we were pretty bored, we grew bored and restless, and I convened everybody. I was like, we've got to do something. So all of us this is like 4th or 5th grade, okay? Everybody got together, or 6th grade, got together to convince our parents to complain, and eventually that teacher was reassigned to her other classes full time. She was not fired, relax, she was reassigned. But before she was reassigned, she called my parents in for a parent-teacher conference, and she told them that I was the one that was riling the class up, and that because I was a spokesperson for this little revolt, that I was una ganguera, a gang leader. I know, like you, I laugh about it now, but it really did hurt to get that message from an authority figure when all I did was speak up for myself and speak up for others. The truth is, I experienced both pride in knowing that I'd been a leader, but it came with the shadow of being criticized, of being warned about, and of being hurt too. I was really scared I was going to get kicked out of that program. And both experiences, whether consciously or unconsciously, absolutely impact how I show up as a leader today. I've grown a lot, but if I'm being really honest, those voices still sometimes haunt me to this day. Do I speak up? Should I keep quiet? What are the consequences, right? How am I going to be labeled as another troublemaker, an instigator, una ganguera? So I'm here to say to the troublemakers, the instigators, those of us who stick our hand up and say, wait a minute, we are the leaders that we need. Only when we release ourselves from limiting narratives can we truly be unstoppable. So I shared my story because I know all of us have these moments. Times when we were labeled, maybe cut out of groups, jobs, or friendship circles. Maybe we were told you were, to name it, effeminate, right? You were too loud, too aggressive, too uppity. You're not executive material. Or maybe you were told you were not lovable unless you changed who you are. Were you shunned by your communities or your family because of who you are? What are the messages that still haunt you today? I know that these can feel raw to explore, but it's only when we acknowledge these voices that continue to hold us back that we can really begin the process of freeing ourselves from them. And who doesn't want to be free? Okay, so now you are about to be a part of something truly special. Some of you may recall at the 2018 summit, during Erin's first year as CEO, and as part of that year-long listening tour that we were on to understand our community's challenges and hopes, we conducted something that now is simply known as Snowflake, one iconic word like Madonna or Cher. So what we did is we asked people to write down in the paper snowflakes in front of them what they were hiding. Don't do it yet, I'm just telling you. That we told them to write down what they were hiding and what was getting in the way of their performance or their relationships at work. And the response that we got unleashed an incredibly powerful opening that not only changed how we saw each other, it really has served as a burning platform for our work in intersectional allyship. And you know what? We have repeated this in countries around the world in different languages, and in some cases, we've had to use different metaphors if it doesn't really snow in that country. So today, we're going to carry on this powerful tradition and unleash the power of community and connection. And from this, we will build bridges across differences that are founded in our common humanity and authenticity. So you ready to go? Yep. You probably noticed some pens and paper on your table. So I want to ask that you take a moment now and reflect on your leadership narratives. I shared, so now you have to too. So listen up. I'm still telling you, I haven't told you the questions yet. All right, little gangueros in here too. After 90 seconds, we'll crumple these papers up in a ball, and we're going to have a massive snowball fight right here in this room. Okay? So write, crumple, and then wait for it. We're going to throw them once. We're not going to throw them twice. We're going to throw them a bunch of times, as many times as you can in a minute. The point, as you probably figured out, is to make those snowflakes anonymous. And I'm going to guide you through the whole thing, because I haven't even told you what to put in your snowflakes. Now, for those of you who are joining us remotely, I ask that you flip to the notes pages in your digital workbook. That's pages 46 through 51. And I want you to write down your thoughts. Think about this as a no-risk, no-consequence confessional, a diary that's just for you. An opportunity to release something that you've been carrying for far too long. Okay, now we're going to do this. Grab a snowflake paper and a pen and look up at the screens. And I have two questions. On one side, what early messages about your leadership do you carry, and how do these messages impact you? And then I'm going to ask that you flip your snowflake, and on the second side, on the other side, I mean, what would it mean to let these messages go and be truly unstoppable? Easy peasy, okay? Get ready, production team, please, 90-second clock, and let's go ahead and start writing. We're not throwing, we're just writing. All right, keep writing. Got about 30 seconds. Okay. 19. All right, wrap up. Time's up, class. Okay, are you ready for the fun part? Take that paper, crumple it up in a ball. We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock this time, and we are going to let it go. Are you ready? Get ready. 60 seconds. Let's let it go.
Let it go. Let it go.
Keep going, keep going. Pick up as many snowballs around you and keep them going.
Let it go.
Practice your aim. Keep them going. Throw, throw. I gotta see more paper flying.
The cold never bothered me anyway. It's funny how some
What's happening here in the front? We've got to see more paper flying. Throw some towards the front, folks. Let's keep them going. All right, couple more throws. Let out your aggression. Let it go. Let it go. Okay. All right. So everyone, go ahead and grab a snowflake or two, whatever you've caught, whatever's around you. And if you notice someone needing help grabbing snowflakes, go ahead and help them out. So let's not hoard the snow. Okay. Go ahead and continue throwing if folks need a couple more. When you have a snowflake, please sit down and open them at your table. We're going to take troublemakers. I haven't finished. For the next 12 minutes or so, I want you to go around your table and share what you have in front of you. Now listen, it is a lot to get through. So although it's hard not to react in real time, I ask that you at least let everybody in your table read. And then I'm going to come back out and we're going to do one more exercise together, okay? So 12 minutes, open your snowflakes and let's get ready to share. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Let's come back now. All right, as I was watching, I saw some powerful body language going on, some pretty deep conversations. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, so please listen up. If you read or heard something at your table that was similar to what you wrote on your snowflake, I'm going to ask that you make yourself visible. Stand up, raise your arms, make some noise, whatever you're able. If you're standing, stay standing, please. Okay, now, if you read or heard something similar to what you know a friend or family member has experienced, make yourself visible. Stand up, raise your arms, make some noise, whatever you'd like. Finally, if you heard anything today, a message you received or a response that resonated with you, something that inspired in you a desire to let this go for yourself, or maybe which made you want to urgently cheer on your colleagues in this room to unleash their power and become unstoppable, please stand, make some noise, raise your arms, make yourself visible. Take a moment and look around the room. Look at each other. We are not alone. Despite our differences, you can sit if you'd like. Despite our differences in upbringing, in identity, in circumstance, we all share a powerful human connection. This, right here, right now, is what it means to be authentic, to show up as ourselves. We have to be true to ourselves, but we also have to push back against that "you're special" framing we receive because of its shadow. We've earned our positions through our merit and our hard work, yes. Some of us never had to face certain structural barriers, and others overcame them. But whatever the case may be, we have to bring others along with us. We, especially those of us who break through barriers, need to dismantle those barriers, not uphold them. We need to ensure more seats at the table. This is the beauty of the Workplace Summit, where we convene to expose structural challenges and work together towards structural solutions. This way, we are truly unstoppable. Whew. Okay, what an afternoon. And it's not even 3 o'clock. The day is not over. We still have 2 workshop blocks this afternoon, so make sure you attend. And tonight, we're partying poolside right here at the Mirage. This private event is open only to Summit attendees. So make sure that you bring that blue badge and the drink tickets that you received at registration. We're gonna have small bites, we're gonna have free drinks, we're gonna have Vegas icons in attendance, we're gonna have photo booths, so let's get our selfie on. And obviously, we're gonna have music. We're gonna have entertainment courtesy of our guest DJ, Mo Hart. You may know her from that little show called RuPaul's Drag Race. So I look forward to seeing you tonight in your best poolside lounging outfit. Have a great day.